Direct mail is very powerful and it works really well. So I'm going to let Judy kick it off and get into her lists.
All right. So as Rebecca said, don't be afraid to ask for donations and ask at least 3 times. You know, a lot of the nonprofits I work with are like, well, you know, we don't want to offend them. Well, they're not going to give you money if you don't ask. If they're offended,
guys.
They're not going to give it to you anyway. Okay?
Oh, there we go. A little touchy.
That's okay. That's all right. It can be touchy. All right. Prospecting and list acquisition. I started in this industry working for a nonprofit, the Health and Education Council, and I had 3 board of directors to report to. And my job was to discover how to put marketing mailing lists together for our organization because there really weren't any. So at that time, without copyright, etc., we would sit there and we would actually go to directories of associations, etc., etc., etc. We'd build our own lists. Then we'd haul them in little carts across the campus at Essex Community College, where they would then make the old-fashioned punch cards. Then we would haul them back again, hoping not to drop them in the rain or snow. Once we did. And then they would go in and they would develop labels. Let's segue all the way here. Way beyond that these days. But the idea is you're still analytically looking to try to find the right list, whether it be within your list or a prospect list. And why do we do acquisition? Why do we ask for, well, obviously we ask for money, but why do you want to do it? Event registration, a capital campaign, an annual appeal, a donor renewal. There are going to have different parts to that, and we're going to look for a different part of the list to segment as well as the message. Okay. All right. What is your final goal? Very often someone will come up to me and say, my board of directors said we have to do this. And I'm going, okay, you're going to fail. I know. My board of directors said we have to do this. You sure you know you're going to fail? I know. All right. So sometimes we have to go back and say, do you want to fail or do you want to change it up? That's another thing. I had 3 board of directors. You can't be afraid to speak up. That's part of what you do for a living, is to make sure they're successful. So you want to raise money for a capital campaign, you're looking for prospects to build future donors. They're not just going to be right outside your door. That's going to be step 2. It's going to take a while to get that relationship going and build them up. Also, what is your approach for the mailing? And there comes content, data, ask, message, voice, and all of that. But what is your approach to mailing? What do you want to get out of it? What do you hope to do? Have a great event, send out a save the date. Who are you mailing to? Are you mailing to people in the neighborhood that surrounds your church? Are you mailing to everybody in a definition around the zoo? Or are you only mailing to the people within your membership list and maybe reaching out some of those other donors? Okay, it's really important that you know what the approach is before you start. How do we get a list together if we don't know what we're trying to achieve? And so save the date. The save dates are great to use. People are like, they cost money, and I'm saying, yeah, they cost money. But what they do is they're building your brand and they're helping people realize that the event is about to happen, to put it on their calendar, whether they still write on one or whether they put it into their computer. Get people to put the information about you on their calendar in advance. And every time they see that, your name once again starts getting in their brain, and it brands and it brands and it brands, because we're always opening our calendar up. But you do definitely want to send out a save the date. If you have a valid email list, think of that as digital mail, okay? So you might want to send out email blast about it. You might want to send a physical card out to it. And you're going to have people that are on neither. They might get one, but you're touching everybody else twice, okay? Now, a drip campaign. There's another reason to work with a mailing list and a drip campaign. A drip campaign is basically saying, I'm going to send to my list for this event that we have chosen in advance, and I'm going to send them a save the date in October. And then in November, I'm going to send them another piece of mail that says, wow, I know you saved a date, but guess who's speaking? And then 2 months later, wow, thanks for registering, or not. Here's what you're going to miss if you can't come. So a drip campaign can be basically dripping pieces of mail out, one after the other, after the other, after the other. Your mailing list that you're using for that is so important, because if you're not targeting the right people, it's doing you no good. Okay, so we're back to segmenting a mailing list and figuring out where we're going to mail, what the approach is, what the message is, what the target is, and what action we want them to complete. Okay? That's why the list targeting and picking apart is so important. You wouldn't ask a one-time giver, say to hospice, to give you a 10,000 major gift donation. They're just a one-time giver. They knew somebody. If they haven't responded to you the first time you go after them, they're not coming back to you. Emotionally, they may not want to, but you have to be careful about why people give, how often they give, and what the purpose is. Then you know more about them, then we know where to include them. Okay? And back to it. You want to have a goal in mind. The first step is not to say, Judy, I get the calls all the time, I need a mailing list. Okay, what kind of list? A mailing list. What kind of mailing list? You know one that we mail to? Who are you mailing to? I don't even know. My board of directors said we need a mailing list, right? All right, let's start over. What's your project? What are you trying to achieve? Do you have any names in-house? Have you ever done a mailing before? Have you ever used a prospect list? Do you have any history within your organization of what have may worked or not worked? Okay, I'm coming over. Let's pull it out and go over it together, right? Now, there is gold in them there hills. Let's take an example. We have a list of 150,000 people. We have a list of 410 people. It's an in-house list, all right? We want to look at how often people have given. We want to find out if they've given at all. We want to see what their donor retention date is. We want to take a look at if they've upped their giving. Did we ask them to, or we forget? We want to look at all of that within your own in-house file first. Prospecting lists, rental files cost money. Let's assume $100 1,000, and most have a minimum order of like 5,000 records. All right, so first step, what is in your internal file that we could possibly work with and use? So let's break down this. Someone that maybe is not given for 15 years, do they come to an event? Are they alive? Do they have interest? That's pretty far back to go, but somebody that maybe hasn't given from 5 to 8 years, maybe we can recapture them. So we want to make sure that we look at everything in your own file first, and then we want to message it right. So if you have a list of volunteers, the message is purposeful to them, what they do, and how to get them to become donors. If you're talking to people that haven't given for 3 to 5 years, then you might want to take the people who have given the higher donor amounts, and every organization is going to be different on this. One, a high donation may be 50, one, a high donation may be 10,000. So it's just talking averages. Let's say that the highest donors are 100 and above. So we're going to create the message to them a little differently, which is where Rebecca comes in, than we are to people who have given 0 to 20, all right? But it's all purposeful because we've started out by knowing what we're trying to achieve. So there's going to be work to do with that. I miscleansed the data file. Sorry, I went off on that.
Oh, no, it's fine.
All right. So I pretty much went over this, didn't I already? That's how I do, okay?
You did. Let's just skip ahead, see what's next.
Skip ahead.
There we go.
But back real quick. Cleansing your list. Keep your list clean. That's a phone conversation for sure. Gather your data, keep it in one place, keep it coded, etc. Okay? So prospect or not, we pretty much cover that. Do you have the money? Do you have the territory to get a prospect list? Or can we look within your own mailing list that you have already and prospect for gold starting there? That's the first place to look on that, absolutely. And real quick on rental files. Most files that are any good, like or similar givers to what you want them to be, are going to want at least 5,000 records purchased. That's at least $500. I don't suggest prospecting if we can only do one list of 5,000. Why? Because normally if it's a smaller nonprofit, the territory is little. I can't go get a good list, and I can't mail another 5,000 from a good list. When you're testing, prospecting, stick to 10,000 records in your mind, 2 different lists, or we have a different pattern to have a discussion about. That's why we go back to them, their hills, the stuff you already own and is in your own backyard, your list.